And we welcome you to the Chief Joyce Dugan Cultural Arts Center on the Cherokee Central School campus. Our appreciation to Jay Winchester and the Cherokee Central Schools, Chris McCoy from Tribal Communications, and Lisa Frady from Destination Marketing Department, Mike Parker from the Commerce Division, and Doug Pheasant and the officers of the Cherokee Police Department. We would like to thank the Big Cove candidates for agreeing to participate tonight. Candidates for Big Cove Community Tribal Council seats are Richard French, Perry Shell, Fred Pinnick, and Renee Long Cole. On behalf of the event organizers, we wish each of you well on your campaigns. There will be no opening statements from the candidates. The moderator will sit at the table with the timekeeper and any debate organizers. The moderator is the only person who will ask questions, and the questions will be from a predetermined list compiled by the Cherokee One Feather based on community feedback. The public, via social media, phone, email, and the One Feather staff were the sources for the questions. There will also be a table and staff available for community members to write in specific questions regarding their communities or other tribal issues at the event. Community questions will be vetted for appropriateness by the members of the COF editorial board prior to being brought to and read by the moderator. The candidates are not to respond to any verbal questions offered by the audience during the debate. We also ask that the audience not react audibly to comments made by the candidates in the interest of time and in respect of the host and the candidates. There will be time at the end of the session for audience appreciation for the candidates. The moderator will recognize a specific candidate to address a question. Once the question is asked, each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond. Each candidate will be allowed an additional 1 minute to address any follow-up. Once the formal question is concluded, vetted community questions will be asked. Up to 8 community questions will be asked in the 3-minute, 1-minute rebuttal structure. After questioning, the candidates will have 5 minutes each to make closing statements. When all candidates have concluded their closing statements, the moderator will thank the candidates and close the debate. Those candidates who could not or chose not to attend were invited to submit a brief statement to be read in their absence. We received no letters in that fashion for the Big Cove Tribal Council debate. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and start the questions. Fred, I'll give you the first question, and it is as follows. Do you think people incarcerated on drug charges should be required to do community service cleanup while they are in jail, including syringe pickup?
Thank you for the question, sir. I want to thank, first of all, yourself, One Feather, for conducting this. I want to thank the audience for being here. For without them, there's no participation. I thank my candidate to my left for being here to participate, and those who are not, I ask you to lift them up in prayer also. With that, the question, sir, that you posed to me, I feel that everyone incarcerated owes a debt to society. Now, with that being said, those individuals participating that you mentioned, we must reach out to Ms. Carla Nadeau, who runs the Correction Division, and get her input, because ultimately, she is responsible for those individuals. I cannot speak if she has enough staff to have that to come to fruition, but without that input from her, I will not support it, but I would endeavor to get the support of the Corrections Division to be on board with it. But at this point, I can't, because I know they're stressed. They have a caseload that's unbearing. Personally, I do not wish anything upon anyone that's overbearing. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee, same question.
I agree that they should at least have some type of community service in place. When I worked for the court system back in the 90s, early 90s, we did have a community service in place. Bill Ledford was in charge of that at the time. and it worked good. I mean, he didn't have a crew more than 10, but of course then we didn't have a jail at that point. But we did have a program in place that did keep the community clean. And now we are in dire need of these syringes to be picked up, because that is a health problem.
Thank you, Renee. Renee, the next question goes to you. The question is, what constitutes a reasonable return on investment for economic diversification opportunities? Please speak to specific strategies. Include your thoughts on ecotourism, solar, and wind power.
Well, I think we need to invest in a power company or solar panels or some type of, energy source. I don't think the wind would work too good because of the mountains would block the wind too much. But we do have an abundance of sunshine. So I do think solar panels would be the way to decrease our power bills.
Fred, your response to that question?
Thank you for the response, ma'am. Myself, without someone bringing to the table information that pertains to this question, we endeavored anything we want to endeavor in, but without a feasibility study, just as the wind you mentioned. Is it suitable for this area, this region? Maybe, maybe not. Same way with our water. If we look at our water today, we're struggling with our water to produce. Only God creates water. I remember as a child, I went to the water, and there was a lot of it. But we have to protect our natural resources. And with that, if we overindulge, we're lost. The feasibility study has to be in place before I will endeavor into anything. Documentation in front of a man, he may be ignorant, but once the documentation's there, he is no longer ignorant because he has the means to indulge and receive what he needs to make a decision. That's my answer.
Thank you, Fred. And I'll just pause just for a moment, and I'm not sure that it was covered as I read the materials, but Joan will have a card, a yellow card. That means you have 30 seconds left to speak, and the red card means cut it off and stop. So just so you're aware of that. Also, last question, I didn't give you a chance for the 1 minute follow-up. Do you have anything you'd like to add with regard to that last question? Renee.
Well, Fred's example of the water, I worked for the water department for 4 years of my last 4 years before I retired. And we did a feasibility study about every other year just to see, what other sources we could use and check on the water tables and such as things.
All right. Fred, you have a minute to answer that.
Well, I still stand with the feasibility study. We can look with our eyes, things that God give us, our senses. I can see the water tables dropped. And with that, without a proper, up-to-date feasibility study presented to me, I will not endeavor in anything until that's on the table.
Thank you, Fred. Next question goes to you. Do you support monthly per capita distributions as a means of universal basic income for tribal members?
Well, that's a term that's used loosely now for politicians. Now, I do support monthly distribution of a per cap because that is every enrolled member's money that's already been made. Now, with the rest that you ask, the way you ask the question, no, sir. But a per capita, I do support monthly. Thank you.
Okay. Renee?
Well, I have to disagree. I would suggest that you bring your bills in if you need some help with that, and let them pay it out of the per capita that way. But it hurts the Social Security for the elders, if, you know, for the older folks. If you had a per capita every month, their Social Security would basically about go away if it was over $600.
Okay. Fred, 1 minute.
That's what's great about a debate. You can disagree to agree or agree to disagree. But when you're in my position as a patrol officer, correction officer, and SRO officer, you come in contact with grandmothers who desperately need that per capita every month. We have poor Indian families here on this boundary, not only in Big Cove, but throughout every community. And as long as I have a breath, I will work to help those who are less fortunate than I. In 2010, I took an oath through the Cherokee Indian Police Department that I would serve and protect those less fortunate than I. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee, 1 minute.
The reasoning behind my response was our workforce is getting too low. They're depending on that $500 a month to come in. We've even got local restaurants here that can't keep their employees staffed, you know, because everybody's getting too lazy. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. They're getting too lazy to get out and work because that $500 a month is their stipend. And I just don't want them to rely on it because it's not always going to be here. It's not going to always be a nest egg for us. So we need to look into other sources for income.
Thank you, Renee. Next question goes to you. Which, with substance use disorder being an increasingly significant concern for tribal members, should the tribe harshen punishments, continue as is, or move to decriminalization of illicit drug use? How do we aid our young people in getting help without the ills of the criminal justice system?
Well, as I stated before, I worked for the court system for 2 years, and our dockets were always full, but they were not full with illicit drug use or drug paraphernalia. It's mostly DUIs and, you know, criminal trespassing and fighting and that kind of stuff when I was in the court system. I think you should have like a 3-strike policy. You know, start out with giving them rehab on the first one. Second, give them a little bit longer. 3rd strike, you know, be done. Not disenroll them, but just take away their benefits.
Thank you. 1 minute, Fred.
Yes, sir. First of all, I believe in forgiveness.
Sorry, Fred, 3 minutes.
I believe in forgiveness because Christ forgave me for my wrongs. And as being a godly man, I think, first of all, we have to get back to the basics. And the basics is teaching your children the way of the Lord. For he may depart, but he will always return. We're lacking in that department, so we failed ourselves. These individuals who are addicted, they deserve respect. They deserve a second chance. If we're going to put our money where our mouths are and treat them like they're human beings who have a chemical dependency problem, we don't have to condone it. We don't belittle them. We don't throw them out. God says, mandates me through the scripture, I'm to pray. I'm to reach out and give a hand up, not a hand out. If we're going to help those, we have to be willing to endeavor to never persecute them for that addiction. Now, if they break the law while they're under that addiction, the court system deals with them. I enforce laws. They interpret the laws. And with that, if they done something that broke the law while they are under the influence, they will stand accountable through the court system. Thank you.
Renee, 1 minute.
I also believe in forgiveness, Fred, but sometimes you can't keep giving and giving and giving and still getting used. I mean, a lot of families are hurting out there because of this drug addiction that we have. There's not an easy fix. But it's killing our people.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, follow up, 1 minute.
Well, that's why I'm running. Because the only individuals who are responsible to create the laws is tribal council. We cannot blame it on the court system. We cannot blame it on the people. We have to blame it on those who sit around that shoe, who create the laws, who control the purse string. If we want to put our money where our mouth is and put the resources behind that, we have a great program. Mr. Casey Cooper works diligently at his hospital. Those men and women serving there are tasked with a daunting task. We must, as individuals, if we get on that horseshoe, put our money where our mouth is and our back into it. But God says, forgive.
Thank you, Fred. Fred, next question is yours. Do you think someone duly convicted of a felony should be allowed to run for tribal office?
Well, if the law says it's on the books, says that they can, yes, I do. If the law on the books at the time says they can't, they can't. Because the law is the law. No one's above it or below it. They're all subject to it, including those who make the law, tribal council. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
I agree. As far as the books say, they're not allowed. I'll stand behind it, but if the law changes, then I'll go with it.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, 1 minute follow-up.
With that being said, the law, as I stated before, is for everyone. No one's above it, no one's below it. We're all a heed to it. Thank you.
All right. Renee, 1 minute. Okay. You've got the next question. What is your stance on discontinuing drug testing of EBCI tribal employees?
I strongly disagree with this. This happened after the fact, after I retired. Being said that I worked for the water department, I want to use them as an example. I care about my boys. And if something happened to them when it's hard. I had an instance where I had to set up a rehab program for one of our fellas. And he was a heavy equipment operator. And I suggested to the manager that we not let him be on there because he had a drug addiction. I wouldn't want 6 of my fellas in a ditch with a man that had a drug addiction on a piece of equipment while he's digging. He could kill one of them. And that just goes to everything on the reservation. You know, don't give them a drug test after the fact, after you get in a car accident. It could be somebody's family out there. They've come to work drunk, you know, and they hop in their vehicle, they take off. They hit somebody. Well, you automatically have to go for a drug test after you're in an accident. So, but I strongly disagree with this. It's just hard to even fathom to think of somebody out there that's on drugs that can come to work and be high and be able to maintain a steady job.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
As you well spoke, I disagree with any program, anyone. Being a former business owner, I strongly suggest that we get back to drug tests, alcohol tests. If you've never experienced or seen personally a man or woman affected by an individual operating a piece of machinery under the influence of a substance, it's something you do not want to see. I strongly suggest to the powers to be to implement it immediately, for I have seen it. I was a business owner in a construction field who has seen firsthand what happens when you don't drug test, alcohol test. Thank you.
Renee, 1 minute.
Well, me and Fred totally agree on this together. So the line of work that he's in, the line of work that I was in, I mean, he has seen drug-related accidents. And I have seen the outcome of a bucket hitting somebody in the back of the head. You know, it could have killed him, but he's all right, and he's still working there. But
Thank you, Renee.
I love those guys.
Fred, 1 minute.
Thank you, sir. I personally have witnessed a death from a man on the job, from a traco operator who was under the influence. I've personally witnessed a truck driver ran over by a truck, a loaded triaxle Mack dump truck, because the individual was under the influence of alcohol. And when you see that firsthand, and you feel that firsthand, you will know that there are reasons for drug tests and alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Fred, next question is yours. If the Catawba Indian Nation gets approved for a casino, what are your plans to help with any lost revenue?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's anyone's opinion whether they're going to get it. It's just a matter of when they're going to get it. It's great that you got your state-leveled individuals saying we don't need it. But you know what? They federally recognized, and they have the same opportunity as we do. Now, with that being said, if we have got folks representing us, which we do, asleep at the wheel, guess what? I'm going to stay awake at the wheel. That's what I'm going to do. Because if you're awake driving the train, you're not wrecking the train. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
They are federally recognized, but they're recognized in a different state. And that's where, in my opinion, they need to build their casino. I went to their bingo hall when we went on a training session in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and it wasn't as big as ours, and it wasn't well run as ours here in Cherokee. But as far as them getting a casino, I wish they would, but in their own state.
Thank you, Renee. 1 minute, Fred.
I agree with you, ma'am, in their state. But that's not what's on the floor at this time with your federal government. What is on the floor and being discussed is in the state of North Carolina. They are federally recognized. Thank you.
Renee, 1 minute. All righty. Renee, the next question is yours. What are your thoughts on cannabis and its economic potential for the EBCI?
I'm kind of on the fence for this one. We talked about the drug use and everything here, so the CBD oils are supposed to be really good for aches and pains and for your joints and that kind of stuff, but I haven't really researched anything on it to really give you a good feedback about its good use. I know some people have used it and they're really fond of how it makes them feel. I mean, it don't make them high or anything because it don't have any THC in it, but I'm kind of on the fence. We could go either way. We do need something in place other than just the casino, though, as an income source.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
With that, all cannabis has some level of THC from the documentation I have read. Some is minute, but it's still there. If we have someone in the medical field, such as Mr. Cooper, who comes to us and says, Mr. Pennick, we need this. We have children who have seizures, this. You can bet I'll support anything that helps our people in their endeavor to overcome any illness. But now recreational, you don't even need to come ask me that question, because God says, not Fred Pennick, God says, for not any righteous man to be under the influence of any substance. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. 1 minute, Renee. Fred, you want to follow up with anything?
Now with that, there is this hemp. There's many studies that shows, well, matter of fact, my father's in the graveyard. When he was in the Marine Corps, guess what them ropes over the side of that ship were? They were made of hemp. There was many a farmer that fed his children because of that. And with that being said, if it's not hemp, you don't need to speak to Mr. Pennick about it.
Thank you, Fred. Fred, the next question is yours. Are you comfortable with the current levels of transparency in government? Do you support public access to all government budgets and procedural documents?
You know, some people would chuckle with that, and I'm one of those people. I chuckle when I hear that. There again, no one is above the law. No one's below the law. We have people who think they walk on water. Transparency, I chuckle. There are so many hidden documents that everyone doesn't get to see. If duly elected, I will see every document that my eyes can see, and I will bring it to the Big Cove community. Rest assured that will happen if Mr. Pennick's in that seat.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
I would say yes, that I am comfortable with it, but as far as the budget and the wages and that type of thing, I'd say no. But as an overall budget, I would say yes to letting the public view all that. But as far as the details, like I said before, detailing it out of the job title and the pay, no, I don't agree with that.
Thank you, Renee. 1 minute follow-up, Fred?
Yes, to follow up with that, that's one of the reasons my name is in the hat. And I ran for Big Cove because I've had many individuals come to me and say, Mr. Pennick, where's this documentation? Where can we find that documentation? And my answer is, I don't know, but I will investigate and find out and bring it to you so you can see it. If it's public record, why hide it? Thank you.
1 minute, Renee?
This is kind of a on the fence thing too, you know. If they need something specifically answered, I would redirect them to the program and let the program manager answer any questions that they need to know, you know, how this money was spent or where it was spent. And me knowing how to do a budget, I detailed my budgets and to how my money was appropriated and how much was in each line item and what it was for. So I would be able to answer some people's questions if they do their budget right.
Thank you, Renee. Next question is yours. Have you read the recently proposed Constitution? Specifically, what is good and what is not about the document?
I have read bits and pieces of it. I've seen some pieces on Facebook that I didn't really like the thing about raising the age limit to 25 or 30 for council and 50 for chief. You know, you're considered an adult when you turn 18, and I feel like there's some kids that's mature enough to make strong decisions and have strong ideas, but I just don't like the thought of raising that one to 25 or 30. But they have been trying to do this Constitution for as long as I worked for the tribe. When Ab Crow was chairman of the council way back about 15, 17 years ago, you know, they tried to get this in place and it never would pass. My suggestion is we need a tribal attorney in there giving them direction on some of this and the wording that they use, and take such things as may out of the text so it won't leave a loophole. But I'm not in agreement with it right now. There's only a handful of people that has put this together, and not the whole tribe has considered or had any input on this. So I don't feel like it needs to be passed right now.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
Well, I'm in support of a constitution. The documentation that's submitted is in concrete. There's things you can change, you can amend. You have to start somewhere. If you're going to build a home, you have to dig your footer for a foundation. These folks that spent their time to research and bring something to the table is far better than what I have seen previous councils bring to the table. So you must start somewhere. I'm going to applaud those folks because they took it out of their time. These folks weren't paid to do this. As these around the horseshoe get paid, why have these folks not stepped up and said, let's create a constitution? Why have they not reached out to the Attorney General? These are the folks that can make it happen. When you take an individual, their own time, their own money, to endeavor to do something, applaud them for it because they tried. We can change, we can implement new things. It's not in concrete, but we must start somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee, 1 minute.
I'm not knocking any of them down or anything about spending their time with it, but like I said, it needs some legal representation there and some input from folks that know tribal law. I would have liked to have been included. You know, I never knew whenever they were putting it together 2 years ago. You know, it wasn't public notice to anybody, so that I know of. But I would have liked to have been included in that.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, 1 minute.
Well, as far as I know, I knew about it. There was a lot of talk about it. Not saying you did, not being argumentative toward no one or disrespectful to no one. But we have something to start with. And the greatest step one takes is the first step, because thereafter creates action. And I applaud them for taking the first step.
Thank you, Fred. Next question is yours. How do you change the EBCI working climate or environment so that there is no fear of political retaliation?
First of all, you lead by example. When and if, by the grace of God, I'm seated, you will not see me pick up the phone and call anyone using political gain for any reason. You lead by example. At home, you lead your children by example. The way you change is by yourself working with someone else. It's a partnership. You must partner with your community. Our community can make things happen. One man can have a dream, and you couple that with a community, you can change the world. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
Well, first of all, I'd add it to the policies and procedures, to the handbook. So that if you ever needed to go back to it, say, hey, you can't do that to me. It's right here. You know, I'm a strict person on policies and procedures. I worked for finance for almost 20 years, so we had some stern rules. So, but other than that, just go out there and do your job, so you don't have a spotlight on you saying, you know, well, you can't do that because you're his cousin, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But I would just say, just do your job and not have the fear of anything on your back.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, 1 minute.
Thank you for that comment. When one chooses to put oneself above everyone else and dictate to someone, you can have all the policy and procedures you want, unless that person leading puts themselves below everyone else. We lead by example. We do not dictate to anyone. Dictatorship doesn't work in my world. To hold someone accountable to something that you're not willing to hold yourself to, it's appalling to me. And we have individuals who sat around the shoe formally who've done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee, 1 minute. All right. Next question is yours, Renee. What would you do to improve or balance housing opportunities for tribal members and needed workforce?
Well, my main idea would be all this property that the council's been buying up, go ahead and start lotting it out and letting people purchase it and start putting homes on there. That's the whole holdup right now, is getting land to put a home on. And the next problem is infrastructure. I mean, I'm a prime example. I've been trying to get on tow strings since 2005, and I just got to move on into my home last August. So you do the figures. I mean, I had the property. I just couldn't get anybody to get up there to do the job, to get it graded properly the way it's supposed to have been done. But instead of buying all this land and letting it sit, they need to go ahead and lot it out and let people buy it and put their homes on it.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
Well, unless something's changed lately that I don't know about, the only people that have control of the land are tribal council. And with that being said, they have to do their job. What is their job? Affordable homes. And notice what I said, affordable homes to tribal enrolled members who can own a home. Creation of these apartments, it's a great thing. I support it 100%. You have to have homes for your workforce, whether they come in or they're already home-based. But we must invest in home ownership for our enrolled members. First and foremost, we are a billion-dollar corporation. When I ran my business, guess what I invested in? A man away to work and a place to work and a home to live in. Guess what you create? You create an environment where a man enjoys to come to work, he enjoys his wages, he looks forward to going home to his children because he has produced something that's tangible to him. His home, his car, his clothing, his ability to feed his children. We invest in our own people because it pays back to you tenfold. Get off of your mics, stop running your mouth, put your backbone into it, your hands in the dirt, start digging foundations. Simple, folks. Invest in your own people. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee, 1 minute.
I agree with Fred on that. Our people are the ones that's supposed to come first. I mean, the casino workforce is good, and I know it's a lot of foreigners that come in here and people that don't live here, but we need to take care of our own first and foremost.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, 1 minute.
I think I spoke it to the heart. No need to say no more.
Thank you, Fred. We have now read now we'll read the community questions that have come in. We have 3 of those. The first one will go to Fred. Fred, what's your plan to reduce the crime rate?
You know, I'm so glad I got that. The only body that can change the crime rate is those around that horseshoe who create the laws. We can blame it on the courts all day long. We can blame it on the officers. We can blame it on society. But guess what? Ultimately, you took this job. You said you were man enough or woman enough to create the laws. Do your job. You don't like the way the law is? It's your fault. You created it. If you didn't, create a new one. Stiffen that punishment. Because I can tell you something. When a man is behind a bar, you have time to think. You have time to get cleaned up. We've got a facility over here that we put lots of money in. We have people there who are more than capable of bringing about a change if you incarcerate them. But playing and smacking on the hand, don't do this, that's my constituent. Give me a break, folks. I wear a badge. Proud to wear that badge. I enforce the laws that those around that horseshoe create. Guess what? If you tie my hands, I'm a laughing joke. This body that makes up a tribal council is the only body that can change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
I agree with Fred on that. You know, I'm a rule stickler, as I said before. And we had many laws, you know, in place at finance, and we always had council members and the chief and vice chief always trying to make provisions for certain people, but I always had a letter saying, you can't do that. This is a law, and I'm going to uphold it. That's what you got me in here in this job for. So that's one of my biggest concerns, is to uphold the laws that the tribe has put in place.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, another minute.
Thank you, ma'am, for that comment, because I agree 100%. I personally have had phone calls. And with that being said, you wasted your call. The law is the law. No one's above it, no one's below it. It is the law. It's for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. 1 minute. Renee?
Just want to agree with him on that. Me and him's about on the same boat as rule stickler. So.
All right. Thank you, Renee. This is your question. Why can't you have an office in the community and be available to the community when you are not on official business? When you are not on official business.
I always thought that would be the best idea in the world, for your community to be able to reach you between 8 and 4:30. You know, I always thought that was an awesome idea, but it never got passed. I mean, you're there earning a salary, and you should be available, in your office unless you're on travel for the tribe for, like, to a meeting in D.C. or in Raleigh or wherever. That would be a great idea to do, and I would suggest that we do that.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
Thank you, sir. Being a former business owner, current police officer, I believe you should be, just as I was as a business owner and a police officer, 24/7, 365. If you can't be man enough to wear your big man's breeches, don't come up here to the podium and try to take one of these seats. Things happen 24/7, 365. You hired on for this. If you want to be rich from giving time to giving time, step aside. Let someone who is going to be available 365, 24/7. Don't sleep. You know that. As an officer of the law, every man there knows at any given time your phone can ring. You off duty? There ain't such thing as off duty. That phone rings, the boss says come, you come. The people are your boss if you duly elected. If they need you, get out of bed and go. I'm gone. My wife goes. She works up here at this hospital. I've many times seen her come out of the bed wee hours of the morning. It's not a few hours. It's 24/7, 365. If you're a public servant and you chose to take that job and that responsibility and that oath, you owe it to the folks. You're getting paid for it, and you're getting paid well. Thank you.
Renee, 1 minute.
I wasn't saying I'd just be available from 8 to 4:30. Everybody that knows has my telephone number. Even when I worked for the tribe, they'd call me at home or they'd text me, when they had a water issue, if their water was off or anything. And I was always available, and I always give them the on-call number if they needed somebody in an emergency. But my phone's always on 24/7. And anybody needs me, they can call me at any time.
Fred, 1 minute.
I never meant to implement you or say that you're not 24/7, because being in the job that you were, I know you were 24/7. So if you took it that way, it wasn't meant towards you. It's meant to those who are seating around this tribal council currently. So many. You pick up that phone, you call, hey, guess what? They don't answer that phone. I hurt your feelings by it. I hope so, because it's going to stir you to answer that phone. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. This question is yours. Solly Care is in dire need of a new facility. Where is that on your priority list? And if it's not your first priority, why isn't it? Please explain.
God works things mysteriously. That was one of my endeavors. We do not, under any circumstance, do not put that as priority number one. First of all, those folks that there, they gave their lives so that we can be where we are. We owe it to them. Notice what I said, we owe it to them. I'm a passionate person. I've got passion that's undeniable. That will be one of my passions. We do not do enough for them. It's long overdue. But now, get back to it. Who controls the funding? Those around that current horseshoe. Why was it not their priority? That's why I'm running. Those things are dear to me. Why? Hey, I'm getting up in them ages myself. It's not just for me. It's for those who have paid the price. They're in a place they don't want to be. They would rather be out here. You owe it to them. They need it. Give it to them.
Thank you, Fred. Renee?
Our elders are our traditions, and we need to take care of them first and foremost. And even before I retired, I'd sit through budget meetings, and the manager over the health programs now, she would try to explain why she had so many turnovers in that area. we need to hire more qualified people to take care of our people down there. Some people that just want to be there for a paycheck. We need somebody that actually cares for our people. I know we don't have a lot of folks that's enrolled down there, for one thing, and that needs to change. And we may need to change our manager. So if nothing gets done soon, that would be the quick route to go ahead and remedy the situation.
Thank you, Renee. Fred, 1 minute.
Thank you, ma'am, for that comment. There again, being a former business owner, your return on investment is gained because you invest in your own people. You pay a person a wage for those things that they produce. And those ladies and gentlemen that work there are underpaid. If you've ever wanted a job that's demanding, go tend to an elder who can't tend to themselves, and you'll know they're underpaid. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Renee, 1 minute. All righty. All questions have been addressed. The candidates will now have 5 minutes each to make closing statements, up to 5 minutes. And Renee, you get the first try. Absolutely. Well, make sure you take your microphone with you.
I'm really passionate about my tribe. And I want to see our children have a very fruitful life. I only have one child, but I've given her the same morals that my family have given me. And that's respect. You earn respect. And I think if I was elected, I would show you my compassion for my people and the love that I have for my programs. I call them my programs because I worked for them for so long. I mean, I want to see our children succeed. I want to see them grow. And I want to keep them around here, but, you know, some move and go to other places and look for a bigger and better future, which is okay. You know, that to each his own. But we need our people here controlling our workforce. And I want them to be able to grow, and we need more kids in the trade field, such as HVAC, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, rock laying. You know, that's a dying art, and it's a very fruitful profession if you're good at it. I worked for finance for 18 and a half years, and then did my last 4 with the water and sewer department. So the environment is a strong, strong area that I will lean towards. And the youth is my platform. I want to get the 20 to 40-something-year-olds back involved in the tribe. Right now, they're just sitting at home waiting for a per cap to get there. They really don't have an outlook on life or even a career set. What they just getting by. But I would like to give them the opportunity, you know, in the summer months when they're not in school, to go ahead and start their trade. Maybe do a OJT program like the Boys Club does, and see there's only about 10 children that get to go into it, and my child's one of them. I'd like to do that tribally wide, you know, give the young people a chance to get out there and learn a trade and decide what they want to do in their life. It's a hard decision when you turn 18 and you throw it out there and You know, you're like, now what am I going to do? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to go to work? Am I just going to lay around the house? You know, you got to do something. You got to have some kind of strive about you. Set your goals when you're young. I know when I was young, my dad really pushed me. You know, I tried to take some classes, you know, that's kind of just get by. Oh, no. I had all college prep classes all the way up into my senior year. And I'm good with numbers, so that should be a plus as far as looking at budgets, preparing budgets, and my good common sense and the way I approach people. I'm good at one-on-one. I'm nervous right now, as you can tell in my voice, but if anybody has any questions for me, I've got some cards that I can hand out if you want one. My husband has them, so if you want to go see him, grab a card. It's got my phone number on it, my email address, and everything if you need to contact me for anything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Renee. Fred?
Well, unlike my colleague here, someone I respect, I'm not going to stand, because I want to be seated when I say this. The closest you can get to the ground is on your knees, and I'm not on my knees right now, so I want to first of all thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for without him I would not be here. I want to thank my wife, my family, for supporting me in this endeavor, because it's not just me it affects them. I want to thank you, Mr. Jumper, and your staff for having this forum. I want to thank my community, those who did and didn't vote for me, those who are here participating and those who are not. I'm going to lift you up in prayer. My community thought enough of me to cast enough votes that I'm in this race still. With that being said, I will, to the utmost, give you all the respect that you deserve as a community. I will be a God man. If you don't want a God man in there, don't vote for Ed Pennick. Because if the scripture says it's wrong, it tells a man, what are you to gain the world if you lose your soul? I'm not going to lie to you and lose my soul for nothing. I've worked hard because God had to forgive a man who was wicked. But praise God, by mercy and grace, I was forgiven. So I can be here tonight. I want to say this to you out of respect. If I said anything that you think was aimed at you, it was not. I'm aiming mine at those who served previous. You can put all the blame you want on anything you want, but in the end, tribal council has shown they're the only body with ultimate power. If you don't believe it, just look at what's happened in the past. That's what I've got to say with my closing arguments. Thank you. And I'm arguing this to those who are watching that says, Mr. Pennick, you're wrong. I lived through it. I was there when it happened. I know what ultimate power creates. Ultimate corruption. Ultimate chaos at the expense of your tribal members. Thank you. God bless you.
Ms. Renee Long-Cole, thank you so much for attending. Mr. Fred Pennick, thank you so much for attending. We would like to thank all of the candidates for their participation and willingness to serve. We encourage all tribal members, regardless of who you vote for, to make your voice heard in the 2019 Tribal Council elections and exercise your right to vote. This concludes the Big Cove debate. The Birdtown debate will commence in just a few minutes as soon as we regather materials here. So thank you all.